During the final excavations on Oak Island, a frightening discovery was made. Once again, a remarkable discovery has been made, and this time it provides conclusive evidence that Oak Island conceals wealth. During their concluding excavation of the C1 cluster on Oak Island, the Oak Island team made an unsettling discovery. The team has been keeping a close watch on the progress in the hopes that any significant developments will bring them closer to the treasure chamber or offset vault they have been searching for so long. B4C shaft is nearly at its utmost depth of approximately 90 feet. This location is located just 5 feet to the north of Borehole C. They discovered what may be the remains of 15th century wooden structures. Significant traces of silver and gold were also discovered, leading to speculation about the original location of the money pit and the possibility of a conduit leading to a treasure chamber. Well, this frightening discovery at Oak Island during the final excavation appears to be more exciting than previously believed. How did humans in the 15th century use wood to construct such complex tunnel networks? I do not understand the purpose of this. The discovery of a tunnel at a depth of 90 feet is viewed as a significant indicator that they are closing in on the original location of the money pit. Each excavation increases the likelihood that precious objects will be discovered in the subsequent grab or scoop. Since the gold was discovered in the water, they believe it may have been transported to the money pit. The group unearths a few random timber planks, but the most significant discovery is a massive iron fastener. The craftsmanship and primordial nature suggest that it is at least a century old. The fact that it occurred prior to the discovery of the money grave leads them to the conclusion that there may be artifacts from that time period somewhere. One of the items is a hand-forged spike, which immediately becomes the subject of fascination. Given the significance of each prospective lead, the organization intends to investigate the influx. It appears crude but contains hand-forged raw iron and shows signs of age, making it a significant artifact that may cast light on Oak Island's history. At a depth of about 130 feet in the B4C shaft, the crew encounters difficulty after hitting granite. Due to time constraints, further excavation in the money pit area cannot occur this year, but information gathered from the 5 massive steel tunnels dug in the preceding months lends credence to the theory that the treasure sought after for more than 2 centuries is still buried somewhere beneath Oak Island. The team is aware of the difficulty posed by the funding gap, as well as the significance of technological innovation and the effective application of existing technologies in order to continue their investigation. We may soon learn more about the spike's history and significance thanks to Carmen's knowledge and careful examination of it. The iron spike discovered in the B4C shaft led Carmen Legg to conclude that it belonged to a Middle Ages rock drill. The crew had discovered a few swages 2 years prior, and he concluded that they may have been used to sharpen rock drills. He connected the two by asserting that the swages were found in the same location. It is believed that the rock drill, which is utilized for both drilling rocks and splitting apart enormous boulders, has been in use for quite some time. The rock tool resembles those employed in medieval times. Its very presence inspires a multitude of intriguing theories regarding the money pit's history and the wealth it conceals. The group questions if this artifact provides additional evidence that they are approaching the legendary treasure. The rock auger is historically significant because it was likely utilized in the initial construction of the money pit. The prospect of discovering a concealed chamber or room enhances the appeal of further exploration. As they reflect on the new discoveries the crew has made throughout Oak Island, such as the stone-paved section in the marsh along the ancient stone road, they ponder who may be responsible for the Oak Island enigma. Are they possibly getting closer to determining who is behind this mystery and specifically what is hidden within the money pit? Even as they continue their quest for answers, the Lagina brothers are grateful for the unwavering support and rapt attention of their dedicated staff and audience. Given that scientific evidence indicates the presence of vast quantities of gold and silver beneath the surface, they have good cause to continue their search for the elusive treasure. As they continue to make new openings and discoveries that provide them with valuable new information, the crew remains optimistic regarding their overall progress. The discovery of the artisanal spike adds to their growing body of knowledge in this discipline, which was used to calculate the precise elevations of the tunnel. The group's intention to conduct additional research, including C14 testing, demonstrates its significance. Marty Lagina, Craig Tester, Gary Drayton, and blacksmithing expert Carmen Legg returned to the Institute to discuss the iron spike they discovered at a depth of over 100 feet in the B4C shaft. The enigma of Oak Island has evolved into a captivating tale, a perplexing puzzle whose mystique has only grown as time has passed. Their words, which emphasize their conviction that gold can be located on Oak Island, exude confidence. During the height of piracy in the late 17th and early 18th centuries, it was widely believed that Oak Island served as a secure haven for pirates operating along the entire east coast of North America and in the Caribbean. This notion has existed since the beginning of island exploration. They pondered whether this was the location where a pirate commander had hidden his loot. As they proceeded deeper into the tunnel, however, water began to fill it. This was owing to the peculiar location of the island they were working on, which was above a glacial mound. Despite the fact that no treasure was ever discovered on Oak Island, the legend surrounding the purported location of the loot has been so captivating for the past 225 years that visitors have been making the voyage there. Over time, others began searching for wealth all over the island, not just in the money pit dug by McGinnis and his companions. However, what is the treasure casket intended to contain? As a young man, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who would later become the 32nd President of the United States, became intrigued by the topic after his father, who had business interests in Nova Scotia, provided details about the rumored wealth. This was the result of FDR's father's involvement in the province. The onset of the Second World War in Europe prevented him from traveling to Oak Island in 1939, despite his efforts to keep apprised of the most recent information about the island throughout the remainder of his life. In a similar vein, two prominent actors from the middle of the 20th century, Errol Flynn and John Wayne, funded expeditions to search for the Oak Island treasure. Despite their lack of success, they continue to unearth evidence that fascinates and confounds people in equal measure. The aircraft's position over the mountains added another layer of complexity to the situation. Standard procedure for engine anomalies typically involved a precautionary descent to lower altitudes. However, over-mountain operations require maintaining sufficient altitude for safety. The flight crew found themselves balancing these competing priorities, all while monitoring the steadily deteriorating engine performance. Radio communications with air traffic control remained routine, but the crew had already begun discussing contingency plans. Their training emphasized the importance of staying ahead of the situation and preparing for multiple scenarios while managing the immediate challenges. The right engine's behavior suggested that time might be a critical factor, though none could have predicted just how critical it would become. Weather conditions remained favorable, a small mercy given the circumstances. Clear skies provided excellent visibility, and the winds remained light to moderate. But even these benign conditions couldn't mask the growing sense that something significant was developing. The vibration had become a constant presence, a persistent reminder that this flight had departed from the realm of routine operations. As the aircraft passed the 30-minute mark of its journey, the situation reached a turning point. The subtle warnings and minor anomalies were about to converge into something far more serious. The right engine's irregular behavior had evolved beyond simple vibration, setting the stage for what would become one of the most challenging moments in Alaska aviation history. The morning sun cast long shadows across the aircraft's wings, and in those shadows, something was about to change dramatically. The flight crew's decades of combined experience had taught them to trust their instincts, and those instincts were now screaming that they were about to face a situation unlike anything in their training. What happened next would test the limits of both human capability and aircraft design, transforming an unusual situation into something that would be studied in flight schools for years to come. At 36,000 feet above ground, the true nature of their predicament was about to reveal itself in a way that none of the 178 souls on board could have anticipated. 36,000 feet above Atlantic City. The serenity of the morning flight shattered with a sound that cut through the cabin like a thunderclap. The right engine's cowling, a crucial protective cover weighing more than 200 pounds, began to peel away from the aircraft's wing. The metal groaned and twisted, fighting against forces it was never designed to withstand. In an instant, the subtle vibrations transformed into a full-blown mechanical crisis. The sight stunned passengers on the right side of the aircraft. The exposed engine components, now visible through the gap where the cowling had partially detached, created a terrifying spectacle. The morning sun glinted off metal that should never have seen daylight, casting eerie shadows across the wing's surface. The engine itself began to shake with increased intensity, its movements now clearly visible to even the most casual observer. At that altitude, the air temperature hovered around negative 55 degrees Fahrenheit, subjecting the compromised engine to extreme conditions. The partially detached cowling created aerodynamic disruptions that rippled through the entire airframe. These disruptions generated new vibration patterns, each one threatening to further compromise the engine's structural integrity. Flight data recorders captured the rapid cascade of events. The engine's power output fluctuated wildly, swinging between 85 and 97% of normal thrust. Each fluctuation sent shudders through the airframe that passengers could feel in their seats. The aircraft's automated systems struggled to compensate for the sudden changes in thrust, working overtime to maintain stable flight. The cockpit erupted with warning indicators. Yellow caution lights illuminated across the instrument panel, accompanied by the urgent chime of multiple system alerts. The flight crew faced an overwhelming amount of information, all while managing an aircraft that grew increasingly difficult to control. Their training emphasized the importance of remaining calm, but this situation tested the limits of their experience. The compromised engine continued operating, though each rotation of its massive turbine blades threatened to cause further damage. The missing cowling exposed sensitive components to direct airflow, creating conditions that the engine was never designed to handle. The ambient noise in the cabin increased dramatically as the disturbed airflow created a deep, pulsating roar that penetrated even the aircraft's sophisticated sound insulation. Air temperature sensors around the damaged engine began reporting anomalous readings. The exposed components, usually protected by the cowling's careful aerodynamic design, now faced the full brunt of high-altitude conditions. Warning systems designed to monitor engine temperature became confused by the conflicting data, adding another layer of complexity to an already challenging situation. The flight crew initiated emergency procedures, working through their checklists with practiced precision despite the chaos unfolding around them. Each decision they made would have lasting consequences, and time was not on their side. The damaged engine continued to operate, but its condition deteriorated with each passing minute. The choice between shutting it down completely or attempting to manage its failing state loomed large in their minds. Ground-based radar tracked the aircraft's position as it began a gradual turn back toward the coast. The turn itself presented new challenges, as the aerodynamic forces acting on the damaged engine changed with the aircraft's orientation. The partial loss of the cowling affected the plane's handling characteristics in ways that no simulator could have prepared them for. The aircraft's position relative to emergency landing sites became a critical factor. The vast Alaskan wilderness stretched below them, with airports few and far between. Fairbanks International Airport was too distant, and numerous smaller airfields dotted the landscape, but many were ill-equipped for an emergency of this magnitude. The crew faced a daunting decision: attempt a landing at one of the closer regional airports with limited emergency facilities, or try to make it back to Anchorage where a full emergency response team waited. In the harsh Alaskan terrain, where weather conditions could change in minutes and temperatures dropped well below freezing, choosing the wrong airport could be disastrous. Fuel calculations took on new importance as the damaged engine's efficiency plummeted. What started as a routine flight with standard fuel reserves now became an exercise in resource management. The crew needed to account for the increased fuel burn caused by the compromised aerodynamics while maintaining enough reserves for potential diversions or holding patterns. Oak Island only grew more complicated for historical research. Their findings made with metal detectors open up previously imagined doors, but you can get the same results with your own gear. Always make careful to get permission before searching for anything on someone else's property or on open space. It is widely acknowledged that the discovery of the island's money pit marked the beginning of the history of treasure hunting on Oak Island. The pit, often known as the money pit, is a human-made hole that is frequently assumed to be the location of the lost treasures. The story goes that in 1795, while on an adventure on the island, a group of boys around the age of 13 discovered a dip in the earth. They began digging since they believed it to be a fake hole, and as they dug, they found multiple layers of wood and other things. However, a mysterious flood stopped them in their tracks, filling the hole with water and blocking any further excavation. As soon as word of the discovery spread, treasure seekers from all over the world flocked to Oak Island to look for the loot. The Onslow Company, a group of financiers, organized the first orderly excavation of the money pit in the year 1803. Despite their best efforts, the gang was unable to reach the bottom of the hole, and as a result, they had to cease digging. Many various groups made attempts to unravel the riddle surrounding the island throughout the course of the ensuing century, but they were all in vain. The most serious of these was the flooding of the pit, which made further research in the area unsafe and difficult. The hole was also equipped with a number of intricate devices that, when activated, would force the pit to overflow with water and prevent access to the treasure. Please subscribe and enable post notifications if you want to learn about more exciting discoveries. Despite these challenges, the excavations continued, and the Oak Island Treasure Company was founded in 1861. This specific team was able to dig down to a depth of 90 feet before the flooding that happened in the pit once more hampered their attempts. The excavations were permanently halted in 1909 as the Oak Island Treasure Company went out of business. Since then, several other parties have made an effort to find the treasure buried on Oak Island, but the riddle of the money pit has remained unsolved to this day. The discovery of the money pit and the initial excavations on the island both had a significant impact on the history of the island and the ongoing search for treasure there. Despite the challenges and barriers that were faced, this is true. The 300 years that have been spent looking for treasure on Oak Island have not lessened interest in the mystery despite the numerous difficulties and failures that have been encountered. A number of new organizations have stepped up to the plate in recent years with the goal of unlocking the island's mysteries. One of the most significant recent events was the founding in 2010 of the Oak Island Tourism Society, an institution dedicated to the preservation of the island's heritage and the promotion of tourism. The organization has significantly contributed to raising public knowledge of Oak Island and the treasure hunt. The group has also participated in a number of island-wide archaeological digs. Unusual force discovered on an unusual island. To learn more right away, simply click the video below. They just found something so bizarre that proves that gold is here on this island. Did they find a hidden chest that has a map to the actual treasure? Well, in this video, we are going to find that out. Craig Tester and Steve Guptill, along with Alex Lagina and the rest of the crew, are gathered to begin the latest large-scale excavation with the hope that they will uncover the second shaft, over 100 feet deep and built in the early days of the 18th century, believed to be only a few feet southeast of the original money pit. To do this, they will be digging up the first-ever searcher shaft on Oak Island. Their current goal is to obtain some pieces of the shaft and conduct dendrochronology on it, which will be able to tell them the year this wood was formed on a tree. According to Craig, if anything will be able to tie them back to the original money pit, it would be shaft 2. The tree rings they spot on the wood will tell them when it was cut down. If they can uncover and confirm the date to around 1805, they will not only be able to locate the original money pit, but also find the source of the precious metals they have detected in the area. They excavate a big piece of wood they believe could have belonged to one of the long walls, but the question remains, does this belong to shaft 2? According to Rick Lagina, the second shaft is like the Holy Grail in terms of significance. They are closer than ever to finding the money pit. The wood they pull out is rounded and thick, which Craig believes is the outside of the tree and could be excellent for their testing. They take multiple samples of this wood when Marty Lagina arrives on site, and they decide to use a mirror to take a closer look at what's down there by reflecting light into the dark corners. Marty describes how incredible it is what people in the past were able to accomplish with their limited technology, but also how they need to think to find the money pit. Gary uses his metal detector and finds a signal in one of the scoops of dirt, pulling out a rosehead spike which remains in great condition, possibly from the 1700s. Between the 1780s and mid-1800s, rosehead spikes were created for construction. This could be another clue. They note a lot of boards in the dark pit, and they decide to try and take some of those beams off the walls. Rick notes the mix of older wood and how the second shaft was built in the early 1800s, likely a great match to that old wood. If they find a match between that wood and this time frame, they will have the first discovery shaft on Oak Island, an amazing accomplishment. The operator of the excavator is flying blind but being instructed by Scott as they carefully maneuver the excavator's bucket down the shaft and scrape it along the walls for wood samples. However, they face a setback when their first sample falls out of the bucket and splashes into the water below. This is a great challenge, but Billy, the operator, triumphs as he pulls out a massive beam of wood. Gary then goes to check if there is any metal in the wood by passing a detector over it. When there is no signal of metal, he determines this is a good sign as it suggests a very antiquated style of construction. The critical descent. The final approach into Anchorage International Airport came far earlier than anyone had planned. The aircraft never made it anywhere near its intended cross-country destination, but that decision would ultimately save everyone on board. The flight crew configured the aircraft for an emergency landing in Alaska's harsh winter conditions, managing their speed precisely through the bitter cold. Too fast would stress the damaged engine further, too slow risked ice buildup on the wings. Air traffic controllers cleared all traffic from Anchorage's airspace, creating an emergency corridor for the troubled aircraft that had barely begun its intended journey. Emergency vehicles lined the snow-covered runway, their lights piercing through the dim winter morning. Search and rescue teams positioned themselves strategically, knowing that in Alaska's unforgiving climate, every second of response time mattered. The landing gear deployment in sub-zero temperatures brought new concerns. The additional drag created by the extended gear, combined with the fierce Alaskan winds, made the aircraft increasingly difficult to control. They were attempting this landing just a fraction into their intended flight path, but it was their only option. The plane rolled slightly to the right, requiring constant corrections from the flight crew. As they descended through 1,000 feet, the crew relied heavily on their instruments. The runway lights, barely visible through the swirling snow, provided crucial guidance. Though they were thousands of miles short of their destination, they knew returning to Anchorage was their only chance for survival. The actual touchdown demanded incredible skill in the treacherous conditions. The flight crew executed a perfect landing despite the odds, bringing the massive aircraft down with remarkable precision on the icy runway. They had only been in the air for 47 minutes, but those minutes felt like an eternity. President Trump's response was immediate and unprecedented. Within hours of the incident, he ordered a complete shutdown of the airport. "What happened in Alaska is unacceptable," he declared in an emergency press briefing. But thank God they made the decision to turn back. Those pilots saved hundreds of lives today, and we're going to make sure this never happens again. The investigation that followed took on national significance. Teams of engineers, safety experts, and aviation specialists worked around the clock, and their findings were reported directly to the White House. The partially detached engine cowling revealed critical weaknesses in cold weather operations, problems that had gone unnoticed during routine inspections. The president's involvement accelerated the response from federal agencies. "If that plane had continued its journey, we might be telling a very different story today," Trump stated firmly. New inspection protocols were rapidly developed, with a special focus on aircraft operating in extreme weather conditions. The incident sparked a broader debate about aviation safety in America's most challenging environments. The president's administration pushed for comprehensive reviews of all major airports in extreme climate zones. "We're going to have the safest airports in the world," he insisted. "What happened in Alaska is going to make every airport in America safer." The story of that aborted flight became more than just another aviation incident. The quick decision to return to Anchorage, though disappointing for passengers bound for the East Coast, proved to be the difference between a close call and what could have been a catastrophic tragedy. As winter settled over Alaska, the airport reopened with newly implemented safety measures, setting a new standard for cold weather aviation operations. The incident proved that sometimes the bravest decision a flight crew can make is to turn back, even if it means never reaching their intended destination. The next time you board a flight, take a moment to appreciate the incredible system of safety and skill that keeps us soaring through the skies. This Alaska incident didn't just change aviation, it showed us how challenges can transform into opportunities for growth and improvement. Every flight today is safer because of lessons learned thousands of feet above the stunning mountains. Enjoyed this journey through aviation history? Hit that like button and subscribe to explore more fascinating stories that changed the way we fly. Let's keep reaching for the skies together. We'll see you in the next video.